Bruce Feldman from The Athletic and Fox Sports in his usual Wednesday spot. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
Where are you heading this week?
I'm heading back to Boulder, Colorado, tomorrow, in fact.
But the game's not on Fox, is it?
It is not. Nor is the game anywhere near when our show ends. It is a night game.
So you're going to report? What are you doing?
We are going to do the Big Noon Kickoff show back in Boulder, just like we did last week. Now, last week we had the game. It was the Nebraska game was right after our show. This one is not, but I think the attention and the ratings and the interest, it has been sky high for all things Deion and the Buffs. It's also not a great week, to be honest, of games otherwise. I think we probably would have been at Illinois, Penn State. Illinois got beat pretty bad by Kansas the last Friday night.
So just go back to Columbus. I mean, back to Boulder.
To Boulder, yeah. You can't have Columbus.
No. Okay. Yeah, I got November on the brain. Wow. Okay.
Could you ever imagine? No.
That's about to say, like, this is transformative.
The prime effect is insane on so many different levels at this point. Like, I went to practice on Friday morning, and half the NBA was on the sidelines. You know, at one point I'm looking, I'm like, that's Spencer Dinwiddie, and I was like, yeah, that guy plays for the Celtics, and that guy plays for the Thunder, and T.O.'s there, and then I'm talking to the Nike guys, and there's like big Nike reps there, and they're like, yeah, Wu-Tang's coming here tomorrow, and Michael Irvin's coming here tomorrow. I think Stephen A. might be coming in. Crazy.
That's Deion. That's the Deion effect.
I guess, yeah.
Bruce, you said it in your piece that, about Constance. It's like USC in the early 2000s.
Yeah, one of the Nike guys, when I say Nike guys, I mean these are people who are part of the Deion Operation Prime and ramp it up as much as you can because the demand for I ain't hard to find. Well, right now it's hard to find because it's selling out before they can print it enough.
Bruce Feldman is here on the Rich Eisen Show from Fox Sports and The Athletic. And for our radio audience that just joined us, you're talking about it's just an absolute A-list, wired for energy type circus. Or I shouldn't say circus because that connotes something that is out of control, or it connotes something that is, you know, it's maybe not the most positive connotation. It is just an absolute, total, and complete A-list scene that's going on in Colorado right now.
Yeah, there's all kinds of combinations going on. You have, so the point that one of the Nike reps had told me on Friday at practice was Boulder's the new Hollywood, and I said, is there anything you can compare this to, like in college sports? And the only comparison was when Pete Carroll had it rolling almost 20 years ago now, right? And this is the Leinart Bush days. And he was like, you had Snoop Dogg at practice. Will Ferrell sometimes came out. You know, Pete Carroll was a star in his own right. So now you have some of those same kinds of people, right? And you have more athletes who are coming around in terms of NBA people and different people who are big sports stars. But Deion, look, no disrespect to Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll was really charismatic, especially for a football coach. Deion's on another level of that in terms of just star power. And I think because it's just come up out of nowhere, there was a little bit of ramp-up time for USC. You know, in Pete's first year, they got to be decent after a rocky start. This is different. Now, I'm not saying this team is anywhere near, you know, as good or as great. There's no Mike Patterson on the Colorado defense. You know, there's no Sean Cody. They don't have the same caliber offensive line. They have some legit star power and the skill guys, and I think Shedeur is a really impressive quarterback. But just in terms of the fascination with Deion, and I think there's a lot of incubation here too, where the people Deion and Deion's people know. We're talking about, you know, heavyweight people, Snoop Dogg, Michael Strahan. You know, they're not the people who are showing up to Manhattan, Kansas, or Ames, Iowa, or Iowa City typically.
Well, or typically to Boulder, Colorado. And so that's the question you're already hearing. Just 2 games in, 2 wins over last year's national runner-ups and over Nebraska. That Deion's not longed for Colorado. And I'm kind of sitting here saying, you know, why would anybody say that? Because he's bringing his brand there. He was brought there by a group, and I know him. He's a loyal guy who remembers who was there for him. And I understand he made a leap to get to Colorado. But what's your general sense of of his comfort level there, having seen it?
Oh,
Going
he's
back
definitely
to it?
comfortable because whoever, and Brockman had said this before, like I did a big piece on his business manager, Constance Schwartz-Marini, and one of the things that we talked about for the piece was when this deal was coming together and she was talking to Colorado, it was like, you have to, as the AD, Rick George, you have to understand everything you're getting with Deion.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be all in, and this is different than being all in with PJ Fleck or, you name the college football coach.
Yes.
Like there's a lot, it's a heavy social media presence. It's a different level. And look, to Rick George's credit, he went and did the deal. Other guys, Arkansas really liked him in the interview process. TCU really liked him in the interview process. But Colorado was the one who were like, we're making this happen.
Yeah, we'll give you the store. Open the store. And he opened the store, and now everybody's walking in the store and wants it. And so Colorado State is a game that let's just assume they win because they should.
They should.
And this is one of the first opportunities of them playing a game that they should win, which is wild to say about a team that just won once last year. What's this going to look like, with Oregon?
That's the
week after.
Yeah, that's the big money question. Oregon and then USC's after that. Oregon is up there. Both those teams are much more talented than the two teams they've played, and they're certainly more talented than Colorado State will be. They do have a terrific quarterback. Like I don't want to say I've seen enough of Shedeur to say he's going to be a top 10 pick. I have no idea.
Right.
But from what I've seen, you have a guy who's really accurate, extremely poised and smart. He has some presence to him. He also has a lot of speed around him, and he's very comfortable in the offense that they have. Now, he got hit a bunch of times by Nebraska. Nebraska got pressure on him. I think the Colorado offensive line is a big question mark because it's a patchwork offensive line. Oregon is much more talented than certainly TCU and certainly Nebraska was, especially with the athletes they have in the front. I mean, as long as Shedeur holds up physically, I think they're going to put up a lot of points, and because they do have good skill guys, and I think they have a good plan. So we'll see. I mean, I think they can be competitive. I don't know. You're not slowing down Caleb Williams and USC. You're gonna have to if you're them, you're gonna have to win that game like a basketball game, like a 70 to 60, 69.
Well, you said they were basketball players at practice, NBA players at practice. I mean, what would it look like if he's 5-0 and he gets through Oregon and USC? What would it look like?
Come on. They'll be in the top 5.
Well, not just
top 5. If they get through that, they should be number 1 because Georgia's not playing anybody.
True.
So, but that's a huge if, right?
But so was the last 2 weeks.
Let me ask you a question. You know him way better than I do.
Sure.
Do you believe?
Of course I do.
Okay, but what does believe mean here?
Well, believe means that he can do it. Yeah, that he's 5-0.
So you think he's going to be 5-0?
I don't. I'm not going to sit here and say it's definitely happening, but I think the last 2 weeks proved to you his power of persuasion and the smarts of the staff to have the kids ready.
They'll be ready. I just think it's like...
I know. I get it. The talent level's different, that the environment is different. But, let's just say that this happens, that happens, and they are 4-0 and USC comes to town.
Oh.
Look out. Honestly, I truly believe.
So you think they're going to be 5-0?
Like if
Thank
I had
you
to
for putting him on the spot.
If I had to swear by it, of course I'm not going to sit here and say they're going to be 5-0.
Oregon is impossible.
But I believe
too. I believe that he knows exactly what he's doing. I believe his players are really good.
He's got his theme music.
And he deserves it. And the 80 and 98-year-old,
I saw that video.
Which like they're pushing all the right buttons here too. By the way,
because that's what he when he's there, he ingratiates the family into his world. If you make him feel like he's family, then you are his family. That is the way it's been all the time. And when he first, again, I tell these stories all the time. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but now I'll keep doing it. When he first came to NFL Network, the word was he's going to be Deion, he's going to be prime and whatever. And then Marshall Faulk was telling me he's one of the greatest teammates anybody's ever had. And that's all he's going to be here too. I'm like, okay, great. Met him. 100% from start to finish. But when he first arrived and when he left, one of the greatest teammates. He was as great to everybody. He was as gracious to everybody. You know, as long as you treated him like family, you were his. And so that makes sense to me that he's going to be part of that world and not like, as long as you make him feel that, he will then make what's important to you important to him 100% of the time.
Now, look, that is a skill, probably not unlike having, you know, his guy Travis Hunter. So there's a guy in his staff, Tommy Robinson, who's been an SEC assistant at a lot of big time schools, LSU, A&M. He was out here at USC, been around a ton of great players. By the way, he was out with the Cowboys as an assistant when Deion was there. Mm-hmm. And so I talked to him before the game, before the opener, and he was measured about, you know, Dylan Edwards, a little running back who's a really good player, and about everybody. And so after when I saw him at practice the other day, we were talking about Travis Hunter, and he was around Justin Jefferson. And I was like, take out the cornerback part, which is the significant piece. But I was like, as a receiver, because they're roughly the same size. Justin Jefferson's a little taller and a little longer. And he's like, I think Justin's a little faster. He goes, ball skills? This guy might have him, which is like, you know, you start to get into like some of the special players. And if you have difference makers, which I think the quarterback is, and I absolutely think Hunter is, and these other guys are good players. I don't know if they have enough of them, but you might have a puncher's chance against one of these games, because this is what happened against TCU. You know, Travis Hunter decided to be Superman in the second half and made some crazy plays, and that can happen. Now, unfortunately for them, they're going to play the closest thing to Superman in college football in a couple of weeks when USC goes there.
If they're 4-0 going into that game, oh my goodness. That'll be amazing. Bruce Feldman here on the Rich Eisen Show from Fox Sports and The Athletic. Did Texas just put themselves in a pole position for a playoff spot?
They did. They went into Alabama and smashed the Tide. They did. You know, if I didn't know better, I'd be like, these uniforms are reversed. They whipped the Tide physically. I mean, Alabama had no sacks and 2 tackles for loss. Texas had like five sacks and got after them. They dominated in the trenches. Quinn Ewers, who was hyped to be a, you know, potential first pick of the draft guy, he backed it up. I mean, his numbers don't even tell the story, because I think they dropped at least 3 of his passes. One would have been a touchdown. Another one probably should have been a touchdown. He was, you know, like, he was really good when they played last year, and Alabama was lucky to win that game. He only played a quarter and a half, then he got hurt. You know, there's 2 stories in this. The one story is Sark has really upgraded the roster, and they have brought in good coaches, and those guys have developed, and that's a big deal. Now the question is, can Sark do something he's never done, which is have a team win double digits? Because this team's definitely talented enough to win 11 games, and I think they're probably talented enough to be a playoff contender, because they're good in the trenches. They have a lot of receiver and skill talent, and they do have a quarterback dangerous because he can put the ball wherever he wants. Alabama, they're reeling. I'm not saying they're going to go 8-4, but the thing that concerned me, why I didn't think they were a playoff team going in this year, was they weren't a playoff team last year, and they had a super quarterback who covered up a lot of flaws in Bryce, and they had Will Anderson, who you had to mark on the other side of the ball, plus Gibbs was a first-round pick. All those guys are gone, and to think they were going to get better, I'm sorry, that just didn't line up for me.
So if Texas wins the Big 12, they're in the playoffs, right? I mean,
assuming they're not 10-2. I mean, look, one of the things that's hurt them in the past is they've stubbed their toe. I mean, they looked really good last year in a game they lost, and they looked not good, you know, a couple of times later on.
Right.
They have to maintain focus and can't do what Texas has had a tendency to do, is yo-yo and get up and down. And because I think at the end of the day, they're really talented. They're not talented enough to think they can just whip most of the Big 12 with their C game. They can't.
What's happening at Michigan State right now?
It's an ugly story with Mel Tucker, and you know, everything I had heard was that this was a relationship that he had been separated from his wife for a while, and honestly, when I first read the USA Today story, it was late Saturday night, this past Saturday night, and I was a little surreal to read it on so many different things, so many different levels. I'd be surprised if he is ever going to coach there again at this point, because especially after his comments to try and defend himself to it. Michigan State obviously has a ugly history, from the Larry Nassar case. And so for their president to talk about how this wasn't the old MSU and how we handled it, there's going to be a hearing in 3 weeks. I think it's just going to get messier and nastier. And I am afraid, I don't think anybody who's involved in this is going to come out. They're all going to come out, I feel like, looking not, it's going to be hard on everybody.
So he's coached his last game at Michigan State.
I'd be shocked if he could come back and coach after that at Michigan State. Now, could Mel Tucker had success as an NFL assistant and had been well regarded in those? My guess is that's the next place he coaches is back in the NFL. I just think it's hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube after how public this is in regard to everything that's in that story and is going to get parsed through discovery. Like there are certain things that his lawyers may be able to bring to light that I think could hold, Michigan State in a position where maybe they end up having to pay him some, if not a lot of the money that it was in that contract.
$95 million.
Right. I don't, my guess is a lot more will come to light from his side about the relationship of the dynamic involved here. Again, I think it's just going to be really ugly and really just a really sad story on a lot of levels there.
Before I let you go, Bruce Feldman, what is the other story we're not talking about in college football right now? Is there one that is beginning to grow, a program that's ready to burst out, to try and burst on the scene, or another one that's falling? What am I missing here right now?
I think the story to kind of that started taking shape is, for the first time in a long time, the SEC is really looking like they're going to have a really bad year. Now, Georgia can put some perfume on it if Georgia makes a three-peat and cover up a lot of the rest of it. But you look at the rest of the conference. I mean, we just talked about Alabama. Texas A&M had one road game in the first half of the season. It was against an unranked Miami team. They went to Miami and got their butts whipped. Nobody saw, that was not a great Miami team. And now you got Jimbo Fisher in year 6, brought in Bobby Petrino, and they got smashed at Miami. You had a lot of other losses in there. Florida looked terrible when they went to Utah, and Utah was playing without Cam Rising. I mean, the players didn't just look bad, they looked unprepared. You have South Carolina losing to North Carolina. There was a bunch of bad performances, and so they'll play each other. Georgia's not going to, except for their Tennessee game, they're really not going to play anybody thinks is particularly good. So I think everybody knows Georgia's loaded. But beyond that, you look at it and you're like, wow, this is going to be interesting, because the swan song of the Pac-12 is going to be we think, because everything the way it's shaping up and the quarterbacks they have and the offenses they have,
it's unreal. The
best season they maybe ever had.
I'm telling you, we touched on it last week. I'm going to hit it again. I mean, if Deion had shown up a year earlier, I think the Pac-12 would have survived. I think 1,000,000%. If Deion showed up 2 years ago, and
he showed up 2 years ago, and then it's the USC UCLA dynamic wasn't already lined up.
I guess that's it then.
Because that's
so
the
if
Big
he had
Ten.
shown up, if this had been happening before the Big Ten poached the Los Angeles teams.
Well, what's crazy on that front is Mel Tucker leaves after 2019 to go. He has 1 year and gets people excited, and then goes to Michigan State. They end up hiring Carl Durrell. Now, I'm not saying anybody thought Deion was in play for that, right? Deion might have been a consideration in some Florida State fans' hopes. But if somehow that had lined up, it's probably a different story. Now, some of the things were much different. NIL wasn't a thing. There was just college football wasn't the same 4 years ago.
So then I guess if their contracts didn't come home to roost until 2 years from now, and USC and UCLA didn't make the decisions that it did, and Deion showed up right now. I mean, again, you are going to Boulder, Colorado for a game that Fox isn't broadcasting. And if you look at the schedule that Colorado is, and we've been putting it up, if you ranked like the level of national interest in the games that Colorado is playing this year,
that's the lowest one on the list.
It's honestly, and so this is 100% the Deion effect in full swing.
Yeah, you could never.
The Pac-12 is just one of those conferences over the last few years. It's like their games start too late. They didn't have a package for people to see.
A little story on this. I'm in a car flying back from Boulder, and I'm coming. They flew me into. I was about an hour and a half away in Ontario. I'm in a car talking to one of my buddies and trying to get, because the Wi-Fi on the plane didn't work, trying to get up to speed on what happened in like NC State Notre Dame. And he was like, I heard you're going back to Boulder. I'm like, no, that's wrong. I said, we're probably going back to Boulder in a couple of weeks. He goes, no, Gus said it on the broadcast. We're going. I was like, no, they play Colorado State next week. It's an ESPN game. It's late at night. No shot. And he's like, I'm just telling you what I heard. I'm like, well, that's no. And then I happened to be on the phone with my boss, who I was gonna see in like 20 minutes or 30 minutes whenever I got there. And sure enough, it just blows my mind. But again, the word I keep coming back to when it comes to Deion Sanders is unprecedented.
Yes.
All this stuff is unprecedented.
So why can't the Pac-12, just say, tough, we're not going to these conferences, and just stay together? Is it too late?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
it is.
I think all this stuff has been signed, and I don't know how anybody
just break the
feels.
contract.
Call
Big
up the Big Ten and go. Yeah,
It's tough. Sorry.
Because
We're
it's still better for them to go to the Big Ten.
And also,
Is it?
but think about it this way:
They've
the
already
leadership
left.
has not changed. Are you going to put Constance as the new commissioner
Yeah.
of the Pac-12?
Why not?
Nobody
She'd be
feels
great.
faith in the
Why not?
leadership.
Why not?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, she brokers a new TV deal, and the Pac-12 is back.
Don't put it past her. You put nothing past her.
Bruce,
No,
crazier
no,
things
but-
have happened.
Yeah.
No, but honestly, the Big Ten's been. You don't do that to the Big Ten, Pat.
Says the Michigan
But the
guy.
Big 12 is better than the Big 10 this year.
Well, because Texas is there right
Sorry,
now.
Pac-12. Pac-12.
The Pac-12 is the Pac-12.
It's
for all we know,
eight-
could be the
eight
best league.
teams in the top
It's definitely
20.
the deepest league right now
is.
Oh, yeah.
in the conference.
What a total.
I know.
Absolute. I mean, it's at least they're going out with a bang.
But there's no
But
faith
it's
in
a
the
total
leadership
what a
right
gut
now of the
punch.
league in the Pac-12, and
So
I
if
think
someone
that's
new comes in, why can't they restore faith and stay
because
together?
everybody's going to be gone by that. It'll be the store will be empty.
There's a barn and there's a horse that's running out of it, and you're going to Colorado, even though you don't have the game, and the game doesn't kick until like 10 hours later, and it's totally wild. And that is a Deion Sanders effect to a T. Thanks for coming here, Bruce Feldman. Safe
Thank you,
journey.
guys.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.